The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man named Matthew sitting at the customs post. He said to him, "Follow me." And he got up and followed him. While he was at table in his house, many tax collectors and sinners came and sat with Jesus and his disciples. The Pharisees saw this and said to his disciples, "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" He heard this and said, "Those who are well do not need a physician, but the sick do. Go and learn the meaning of the words. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners." The Gospel of the Lord. Come to me, all you who labor and are burdened, and I will give you rest. This line from the Gospel acclamation will also be heard again this Sunday in our readings. And we have a perfect time, as we do in our parish here. On first Fridays, we do Eucharistic adoration. So following after Mass, we'll expose the Lord, and all the way before the Spanish Mass this evening, our Lord will be exposed in adoration. And so if you can do me a favor, please, we have our book for sign-ups, those who reserve a spot here to pray before the Lord. And if you can please sign and come and pray this evening, because we're a little short on adorers, because we need to ensure that our Lord is never by himself during Eucharistic adoration. And so when you sign up your name for a specific time slot, it ensures us, especially as a pastor, know, okay, our Lord will be reserved here, who'll be kept safe, because always we have to keep our Lord, have somebody present before him, to ensure that nothing ever bad happens before the Lord when he's exposed upon the altar. So if you can please, after Mass, sign up and reserve a time slot in the book there. And I'm telling you, there's nothing more beautiful than you sit in adoration before the Lord. Something happens to our hearts when we're kneeling before Jesus Christ, the God who created us, and we encounter him in silence. When you read the spiritual masters of Catholicism, there's a common thread that they always speak of, and it's the necessity to pray in silence. And especially as modern people, our minds are like monkeys. They're always bouncing around from this to that. But when you sit in adoration before God, there's a depth to the prayer life that happens, because we encounter Jesus in much the same way that Matthew encounters him. Let's set the background here for this beautiful short reading. So, of course, from the Gospel of Matthew. So Matthew himself is writing about the encounter with Jesus. And I guarantee you, it's not in the scriptures, but when he was writing his gospel and he was remembering this event, I envision Matthew writing this gospel in tears. He's weeping as he's writing these words. Why? Because who was Matthew? Matthew is a tax collector, and he's Jewish. So what that means is he's a traitor. If you ever read Dante's Divine Comedy, he reserves in the lowest reaches of hell traitors. He says they are the worst. Matthew is a traitor because he's colluding with the Romans. Remember the Roman Empire, he's collecting taxes on their behalf. And they're known as cheaters because, as we know, tax collectors always take too much. And he's working with their greatest enemy. So imagine Matthew's life. Everybody in that town knows who he is. He's a traitor. And imagine the looks he would get walking through the marketplace. All the Jewish people looking at Matthew dressed in his finest robes, looking amazing. And everybody knows a snicker when Matthew walks in. Everybody looks at him. If you ever walk into a room and someone hates you, you feel it. You know it when people hate you. Multiply that by the thousands. That's Matthew daily life. He's sitting at the custom post. Jesus now comes in. And instead of the eyes of someone who hates, imagine the piercing gaze of love that he will look upon Matthew. And when someone looks at you like that, you don't forget it. Especially when you hate yourself. When you think you're ugly and disgusting, and someone looks at you with love and compassion, it pierces through you like nothing else. And so there's Matthew now sitting there knowing he's a sinner. And Jesus looks at him and he says to him, Matthew. And they would have made eye contact at that moment. Follow me. And the next line in the original Greek reveals the drama. It said that he got up and followed the Lord from that moment on. In the original Greek, the phrase he got up is anastasia. It's the same word we will use for the resurrection. Not only did Matthew physically get up, but he was resurrected. Reborn, transformed, made new. You don't forget that. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. I did not come to call the righteous, but sinners.